Forbes India, CNBC-TV18 present India Inc. on the Move. Smart Manufacturing, powered by Rockwell Automation.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to humbly call on stage our guest of honor, respected Shri Arun Goel ji, Secretary, Ministry of Heavy Industries, Government of India, to deliver the keynote address. Please put your hands together for Shri Arun Goel ji.
Good morning to you all. I thank CNBC, Rockwell, and Forbes for giving me an opportunity this morning to be with you and put across my views on the issue. I heard a couple of questions on the smart manufacturing. I think there couldn't be any more relevant topic today for us than what you have chosen, India Inc. on the Move and the smart manufacturing. As our Honorable Prime Minister on the 75th anniversary of Independence Day from Red Fort said when he said that India has to be a developed country, developed economy by 2047. And I think all of us in our hearts have been aspiring it to be so, and he articulated for the whole nation. And as he earlier said, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, obviously these all are the links of the chain which only can lead us to be a developed economy in 25 years from now. The smart manufacturing may mean many things to many persons. Like one of the questions here was, would it displace labor? Obviously. So let's go to 1980s, when in our country we are talking of computers displacing labor. None of us is talking about that today. Why? Because while it is correct, it's incorrect. The size of the pie is going to be so huge that the existing jobs, even if lost, the labor lost has to retrain itself for the new jobs. But the new jobs are many times more than the jobs lost. Or, let's look at it this way, there is no survival. Now, when you're talking of smart manufacturing and when we are talking of India being advanced in 25 years from now, is there any other route? I don't think there is any. If Indian manufacturing has to survive, it has to be smart. So in common parlance, we have been saying Industry 4.0 as smart manufacturing. Now, Industry 4.0 in loose parlance is nothing but IT enabled. When Mr. Agarwal was talking of telematics, predictive maintenance, these are all sensors and IT. So we, all of us know, we have over the last 25 years or so, established a very strong footing in IT. And on the manufacturing side, over the last 4 decades, we have reached a tipping point. So IT and manufacturing, Industry 4.0 or the smart manufacturing, that's smart is an icing on the cake. The icing cannot yield without the cake. So the cake is the manufacturing and IT is the icing. So that's the way I look at the whole scenario. If we compare our manufacturing size today with other major nations, as a manufacturing as a percentage of GDP, India is at 14%. China's manufacturing is 28% of its GDP. That their GDP is huge, you know it, but it's double in percentage terms. If we look at other advanced manufacturing nations, Germany, Japan, they are around 20%. Now, this has been the trend over the last 4 or 5 years, which I said, as per the World Bank data. Now, there were questions from the auto industry here. We know in last 4 decades, Indian auto industry in manufacturing has been the greatest success of all other components of manufacturing. Today, in Indian manufacturing, the Indian auto is about 35%, and along with capital goods industry in India, they comprise about half of Indian manufacturing. Let's look at where we are in terms of these two sectors, which are the core of manufacturing. So, as I said, we have reached a tipping point because of the strengths. We have solid strengths today in technical capabilities in auto, but limited to mass market, lower value, lower technology products. When we talk of numbers, we are number 1 in two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and tractors. But when we talk of value, we are at number 11 in the world. Today, we are exporting about $27 billion of auto components, auto vehicles. But in these 4 decades, we have created a high-quality pool of human resource. Simultaneously, many of the companies have made good investments in engineering R&D. In terms of emission norms, today the Indian auto is, in its products, at par with the emission norms of European Union. But if we look at the other side, the advanced automotive technology products, globally, advanced automotive products, which is where we are talking of the smart manufacturing and the smart product. So when Mr. Agarwal talked about telematics, that's one of those kinds. If we don't have those things in your truck, you can't achieve what he was talking about. So advanced automotive technology products globally are 18% of the auto industry. But if we look at the Indian auto manufacturing, it is at just 3%. While we have good numbers, as I mentioned earlier, in the global automotive trade, Indian auto, with its $27 billion, is less than 2%. While we are spending on engineering R&D, but we are much lower. Ours is 0.8% as compared to the advanced economies spending 2 to 3% of their turnover on engineering R&D. And our engineering R&D is mostly on cost cutting and product development. They are not, I repeat, not on value addition or disruptive technologies. When we talk of the good, when I said the strength of our manpower in auto or in the capital goods or in the manufacturing, when we look at the high quality, the higher end, that's level 6 and above, our industry does not find that manpower being available in our country. So there's a constraint. We have a lot of graduates. There's no dearth of graduates. But what the industry needs is beyond the academic qualification. And what the industry complains is low productivity of Indian manpower on technical side, thereby leading to the high costs. So one of the persons was sharing with me in Switzerland that the East European IT manpower, because of their higher productivity, is lower to them in terms of cost than the Indian IT manpower. So I'm talking of the IT here, mind it. Now what is it going to lead to? So what are today, the core, high value core materials and parts, there's a huge dependence on imports in the capital goods and in the auto. And also, reality is there's disinclination for upskilling and adoption of new concepts in manufacturing. That's why we say the smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0. No doubt we have large number of successes in our country. But if we look at the total manufacturing of the country and a percentage of that manufacturing which is smart, then we are not high. Now look at the likely future on the demand side, which is going to come across our country. Today, the car density in our country is 25 per thousand, as compared to 173 of China and 837 of USA. The advanced automotive technology products which I was talking, which is at 18% today of the auto industry, in 8 years' time, that is by 2030, it is likely to go up to 30%. The auto industry is important because of the positive multiplier effect it has, because it consumes steel, aluminum, glass, plastic, electronics, you know all of that. It's a long chain involving MSME, tier 1, 2, 3, and creating jobs downstream. Generally, it is said that 100 rupees increase in automotive industry increases GDP by 300. And if we look at the world scenario over the last 100 years, whether it is USA, UK, Germany, Italy, France, or Japan, the first industry to grow in these countries was the auto industry. And all such hubs which they have of manufacturing hubs, within a radius of 200 miles, you find auto leading to capital goods leading to defense, and defense leading to aerospace. That has been the growth path or the trajectory in terms of higher technology, engineering R&D happening in those hubs. So good part about us is that we have reached a tipping point in auto, but we have a long way to go to be the developed economy by 2047, as all of us aspire. Now let's look at the scenario of auto. What is happening? All of us know the disruptive technologies of electric vehicles happening across the world, hydrogen fuel cells, and I am told very soon we are going to have hydrogen-powered, not hydrogen fuel cell, hydrogen-powered ICE being tested in our country maybe 6 months' time. This is where we are when somebody talked about the disruptive technologies. The auto electronics, because of the smart manufacturing content, the auto electronics content in an automobile is likely to go up to 45% by 2030. And as on today, we are largely importing at auto electronics. All of you know better than me in this. So we are lagging behind in the ecosystem which we require of smart manufacturing. Otherwise, if we do not move, our dependence on imports will increase. Because consumers want something, and you as an industry, obviously, as was said earlier, you have to cater to the consumer, you have to come up with the best products. Now, auto is important because, see, still, even after the grand success, Indian auto is at 3.5% of India's GDP. China is 8.1% Chinese auto of the Chinese GDP. Japan is 12.3%. Korea is 14.3%. And Germany is 15.4%. So see where we have to go, the scope. In terms of capital goods, India's capital goods industry as a part of its GDP is 1.8%. Germany, almost double, 3.4%. China, 4.1%. And capital goods as a part of the manufacturing GDP, India is at 12%, Germany is 29%, China is 27%, US is 26%. See where we have to go. Now, on the other hand, the likely scenario in the next 10 years is that the passenger transport is likely to go up by 30%. And the freight transport is likely to go up by 50%. And all of you know, as on today, it's more likely to continue. More than half of it is the road transport. So these are the opportunities available. Now, we had done a detailed exercise with the industry. So today, the auto industry is about $100 billion, our size today. We have to achieve, and our industry is confident that we can, by 2030, it should go up to from 100 to 360 billion. And by 2047, it has to be 4 trillion. So as a percent, 3.5% of the GDP, we have to take it to 10%. And the global trade, which today is, I said, less than 2%, 1.98 to be precise, it has to go up to 5%. And exports from $27 billion have to go up to $1 trillion. This is the way forward of the auto in India. And if we look at capital goods industry way forward, today we are about $55.9 billion. In 25 years' time, we have to go more than $1 trillion. And as a percentage of our GDP from 1.9 to 3.5. Now this all, if you see the numbers, is not at all possible if it is not smart manufacturing. Like I mentioned earlier, look at the road we traveled from 1980 till 2022. So this is the road ahead. So if we have to reach this size, smart manufacturing is the only way forward. Government of India towards this, on the manufacturing side across various sectors, in the last 2 years has come out with a number of PLIs totaling a payout of something like 1.5 lakh crore of rupees. You know about it. In the auto, the PLI is more than 25,900 crores. Second PLI of the advanced chemistry cell, which our ministry is running, is 18,100 crores. Now, in this PLI, what the auto industry told us about their cost disabilities have been fully met with. So they said the fresh investment, if it is taking place in Southeast Asia, it is because the cost disabilities are particularly high in advanced automotive technologies, because we lack the ecosystem. So under this PLI, our payout is between 13 and 18%. Nobody could imagine. And now, in retrospect, everybody is saying, yes, that is fully answering the call of the day. Resultantly, while we targeted investment of 42,500 crores, I am very happy to tell here, after all the applications have been finalized, scrutinized, we have crossed all that. Now we are getting more than 1.5 times. That is 67,690 crores against 42,000. So that shows how keen the industry is. And this entire investment is from the companies in India. It's not FDI. That's very important. Now, we on the government side want to make this the best possible experience. So I have been telling my people, we must give the best what we expect as a consumer from the private sector. So you might have read last week, we have launched Application Programming Interface, API, for PLI in auto, by which each company's ERP system shall automatically transfer the data to the ministry portal. So no paper, you don't have to fill in the data. So the entire data of domestic value addition and other things will automatically come from you to us, and that will facilitate the price incentive being dispersed in a fastest possible manner and no questions asked. So I think nobody could aspire for anything better than that. So we are giving the best, and we expect you to do your best. Same is in case of PLI ACC, while our target was for 50 gigawatts, but I'm very happy to announce here, as per the reports from the people who are setting up industries, against the target of 50, we are going to get 98 gigawatts by 2025 of the advanced chemistry cells, and 163 gigawatts by 2030. This beyond anybody's imagination. That shows the response and the confidence you have today in the Indian economy. Now, to answer the other problem which I talked about, we have come out with a scheme enhancing global competitiveness of capital goods sector, in which we are giving, it's almost kind of a thing that you come up with a scheme or a project, we'll see how it fits in, rather than the other way around. The objectives are very clear. So in this, we are encouraging and we have financed the projects of indigenous industrial robots, metal and plastic powdering machines for additive manufacturing, and what it is being talked about, the India versus global, like we have given the projects here that the Indian road conditions require different kind of Indian automobiles in India. So we are giving money for the projects which are catering to the Indian road and traffic conditions, weather conditions, driving habits, and so on and so forth. We have created a separate capsule for having qualification packs of level 6 and above, so that the Indian engineers are then trained and made fit, and they can fill the gap of the demand and supply of high-level technical manpower. One of the examples is like the welding technology. So there's a great dearth of high-quality welders in India. Currently, we have advanced welding technology institute in Trichy run by BHEL, which had the capacity of 1,000 persons turn out every year. We have now decided to increase it to 5,000, five-fold increase in 2 years' time. And it will be hub and spoke model so that we train people all across country, not merely in Trichy, and this gap is filled in. Now, another interesting aspect is when I talked about emissions, some of you, the ones who are in the construction equipment, came to me. Now, on-road construction equipment today has emission norms which are at par with the European standards. That has led the entire industry to manufacture the products of low emission norms. Since Indian manufacturing is on a greater volume, they are now able to export those products across the world because the value by larger volume production has come down in India. Now, they asked us that still off-road vehicles have the emission norms as before, because of which the industry is not graduating, and that's why the industry is not growing at the pace at which it is capable of. That's an interesting. So the industry wants a regulatory nudge from the government. Having said that, now you might have heard about some of the accidents on the electric cell side, battery side. So now what we are doing, we have studied the best of the testing norms being available across the world, whether it is a cell or a battery pack or a battery management system. Last month, we have sanctioned approximately 100 crores to ARI Pune. They'll set up most of this equipment by March. So we will create the world-class testing facility first. And now we are asking the industry that since these will be set up by 31st March, from 1st April onwards, if they have to take incentive under PLI or under FAME, they ought to meet those standards. So we are not asking you to do your high-value production, which the country doesn't have the infra even to test. So we are creating the infra first, and then asking you, because as I talked about the disruptive technologies, now the way that is happening in auto, for the first time in 100 years, auto industry globally is facing that disruption, which didn't, because ICE has got options today, or ICE has to change to hydrogen or whatever. So what we are saying is, we must have the best quality manufacturing in our country, which meets the best standards globally. Then, because we are a huge market, obviously the cost of production in our country would be competitive for the global market. And that's how, with the domestic demand being met, the supply will be there, where we'll be able to export at competitive prices, because you can't export if your product is not of that level. So we are nudging the industry from that angle in a positive manner on the asking of the industry. And now I'm very hopeful that these kind of gatherings, the interaction and the willpower as has come out from the response to the PLIs I talked about, India Inc. is actually on the move. We are for the smart manufacturing, and there is no reason why you people shall not achieve India to be advanced, developed economy by 2047. Thank you.
As wonderfully quoted by Shri Arun Goel ji, smart is just the icing that he was saying, but manufacturing is the cake. So basic remains intact, just that to be more competitive, you have to turn your manufacturing to smart manufacturing. Thank you so much, sir, for those insightful words of yours. And can we have a round of applause once again? Thank you. And now, I would request Mr. Parikshit Luthra, Senior Anchor and Associate Editor, CNBC-TV18, to join us. Now, we will be having a short interaction between these two gentlemen. So, over to you, Mr. Luthra, please.
Thank you so much once again. Mr. Goel, thank you so much, first of all, for coming here, giving us a view of what the government, what the Ministry of Heavy Industries has been doing when it comes to smart manufacturing. And I guess this is really the core of the production-linked incentive scheme, 1.97 lakh crore. That is the complete outlay of all the PLI schemes. The automotive sector, big beneficiary of that. You've also made an outlay for the drone sector as well. And if you look at the first line of the PLI draft, it says advanced automotive technology. So this is something that is working for the future. And in fact, the automotive PLI scheme was one which was processed in the shortest period of time. Let me begin by asking you, there have been 13 or 14 sectors which the government has already focused on. For the future, looking at the global supply disruptions, which are some of the sectors which you feel the industry can look at very closely to have greater competitiveness in future, and industries which the government, which the Ministry of Heavy Industries is looking at closely for further incentives?
See, you see, this government is, extremely dynamic and responsive government. So as the first lot has come in, obviously the expectations are for more. This is a human nature. So government is in constant touch with all the stakeholders. So the PLI can't be given to anyone and everyone, let's be very frank about it. So PLI should be given where industry, that particular industry has reached a particular stage. It has a specific requirement which requires that particular input. So the problem needs to be diagnosed and there needs to be a precise treatment for it. Like why we go to the super specialty hospitals is more for diagnosis. Because once the diagnosis is known, treatment can be seen on Google.
Right.
So the mere asking doesn't complete the industry's plea. They need to put the whole thing in a very logistic and a comprehensive manner. And the government is open. As you can see, thereafter, after the first lot, many of the ministries are coming out with other ministries. So even we in our ministry are in touch with other industries we are dealing with, like capital goods, heavy electrical. We are in touch with them. And they are giving us various ideas. So those ideas are being brainstormed. And once we reach a particular point, then we shall come out with a specific PLI.
Right. I'll speak a little more about the automotive sector because you deal with it directly. You've held so many stakeholder consultations over the 2 years, the FAME scheme, the automotive PLI scheme, the component PLI scheme, the advanced chemistry cell PLI scheme, all are being monitored by the Heavy Industries Ministry. Through your stakeholder consultations, which are the points where you feel the industry is lacking when it comes to smart manufacturing? The government has done its bit with the incentives, and as you said, the incentives cannot be for everyone. But which are the areas where the industry now has to stand up?
You see, within the industry, there are various players. So each player has its own strengths and weaknesses. Like in a family, all kids are not the same. So while we have within the auto such industries who have taken the jump even before and they are going to encash. There are others who are looking at them and now coming forth. So I think it's a process in the society, in every society. So slowly and slowly as the movement becomes, now you know when you had the first interaction with me on the PLI auto, there were a lot of apprehensions. Nobody thought even the target we had set for ourselves would be achieved. But in reality, in the shortest time, again your words, we have not only achieved but gone beyond that by more than 1.5 times. And that's where I think the stakeholder consultation is important. Because the moment that this scheme was announced, we had interaction with the industry. They said many things. So, first of all, the direct interaction allayed their apprehensions. Those interactions gave them the confidence. And see, when we frame something from the government side, we can't foresee how the taker is going to read it. So we have to take their perspective. Now, the people who are sitting here, they interpreted the same thing in a particular way. But immediately we said, we'll do it this way, and we did it. So the confidence which the industry got in the government, that's what led them to come forward and invest in a big way. I think that has been the path of auto industry.
I think you tried to make sure that no one comes forward and said that they were not consulted or they did not know that this was coming. I would also like to ask you, one common phrase that we hear in every economic forum is that India's time is now. Countries want to diversify. They want to have a China +1 strategy. And India must rise up to the occasion. Looking at the global disruptions, what would be your advice to the industry to have greater cost and operational efficiencies going forward?
No, Prakshit, as I said, everybody knows though, but as I said in my address also, the path of future is not the same what we did in last 4 decades. It's a different path now. We have to go to a different trajectory, which is a high growth trajectory. So first of that is engineering R&D. We are at 0.8%, where our competitors are at 2%. No, many of our industries are doing more than 3%, more than 4%. But as an industry, we are not doing. Some of the units are doing. So that is the core. Then we need to have the complete chain of questions being answered, which government is doing now. So if there's a question of steel, that is being taken care of. If it's a question of logistics, that's being taken care of. So the government has a comprehensive approach. And then we have to see the manpower, as I said, level 6 and above. That's a bigger challenge. Now, all of us know that behind most of the patents across the world, Indians have a great role to play. But how many patents belong to Indian companies? So patents are being created by Indians, but not for India or Indian companies. We are a big nation. If we have to be advanced economy, if we have to reach the 4 trillion turnover in auto, it can't be the business as usual. All of them know it. And now is the time, that's why we brought in this PLI, to change the track. Because otherwise, before the PLI, the larger section of auto industry was saying PLI should be to use the already created capacity, which we didn't go in for. We went in for advanced automotive technologies because we felt that Indian auto industry requires that catalyst. They are already the most capable. So utilizing the idle capacity is not the right approach. So we need to stretch ourselves more than what we did in the last 4 decades.
Right. Ease of doing business, this is something that has guided this government's policy making. Light touch when it comes to regulations. A lot of reforms have happened, a lot of reforms are underway as well. But there cannot be any shortcuts. The government is giving incentives, the government is making policy interventions, but how would you also ensure quality? For example, when it comes to electric vehicles, issues such as safety, how would you like to ensure that when the government is giving out these incentives?
You're absolutely right. First of all, let's look at the market. Anybody who is producing an unsafe product cannot last in the market. So today the awareness of consumer is so high. So that is the first check. Now where we come in, are we encouraging as a government, irrespective of quality? No. We are encouraging the products which are beyond a particular standard. Then, do we have the ecosystem? As I said, we have sanctioned about 100 crores to ARI Pune, which will be spent in before next March, whereby the entire testing mechanism, ecosystem for cells, battery management system and battery packs shall be in place at par with world in India. We have already created through our net trip, when we have our centers, ICAT at Manesar, near Gurugram, then Netrex at Indore, and GRC at Chennai. Now, these three centers today provide the best in the line testing facilities to Indian auto industry. So, government is doing its role, industry is coming forward, that's how the quality is improving, and that's the way forward.
Right. I'll just open the floor to a few questions. Our distinguished guests have a few questions for you, Mr. Goel. Mr. Agarwal, if I can ask you. Could we give a mic to Mr. Agarwal?
First of all, I would like to compliment you for a very, very insightful address, and also compliment you as well as the Government of India for driving the industry towards smart manufacturing through PLI, as well as program on electromobility, where electric buses are now going to come in the market more and more. Now, my question is, how can we collaborate more and more with the government from industry to push these programs fast?
Vinodji, I think the answer is the continuous interaction. So we must know the problem you are facing. So as you tell us your problems, we'll try to look around for the answers. Many of the problems, like when Prakshit talked about ease of doing business, we know, we can imagine. That's what I talked about, the API. Nobody approached us for the API. We in the government thought, and we have created one. But yes, this is the beginning. It's not the end. If we have to reach 4 trillion turnover in 25 years' time for the Indian auto, we have to collaborate more and more. We need to facilitate the things for the industry more and more. I think the path for that is a continuous interaction. As you experience problems in achieving, we must answer those problems. I think that's the road ahead, as I see it.
Right. Scott Woolbridge.
Good morning, and thank you as well for your very insightful and passionate presentation on what India is doing to drive the industry sector. Rockwell is a global manufacturer, and we look at where we make our investments, and you highlighted a perception around a skills shortage in core manufacturing skills that may exist. What do you think India and the government needs to do to help bridge that gap so that the footprint of manufacturing can accelerate within India, and particularly the global investments?
See, the ecosystem we have no doubt improved a lot. But if we are aspiring to be, as I delineated in my address, we need to know the world's best practices in much greater detail. Not that we have to copy, but we need to learn and adapt, because wheel need not be reinvented, although the same wheel may not work as well in Germany as in India, because the road conditions are different. So like our ministry is in constant touch with many of such organizations. For example, the Fraunhofer, we have a detailed introduction. We have what they have achieved in about 100 years. So we try to learn from them. They have learned by the failures. Why should we repeat those failures? So that is the case study learning. Now we are involving, at my level, I'm having one-to-one talk. So we will not create a policy or a scheme which we know in similar shape has not succeeded elsewhere. So we need to tweak right in the very beginning rather than trying something for 3 years, failing and then changing. So that's where these interactions, that's why on one side, as Mr. Agarwal said, the other side is you. So the constant interactions, open-minded interactions to have the best. So everybody needs to be open-minded. The industry also needs to open up. Business as usual is not the way. So I think that's the way I look at the collaboration, the skilling again. So we have the manpower. They are capable. So an Indian student, when he goes in Europe or US, he's able to deliver more than the local there. So it's not a problem of Indian student. It's a problem of the Indian system of skilling, Indian system of training. That's where we need to learn from those countries who have overcome this problem over the last decades. So that's where we need the collaboration, but by internalizing those to our circumstances. Thank you.
Right. We also have a view from the pharma sector. Mr. Roy?
Sir, your presentation was very, very insightful. It gave us a lot of learnings and insight. There is a lot of PLI schemes which has also come for the pharma sector. I wanted government's view, like the startup ecosystem for various industries will be crucial in this digital transformation and making this smart initiative, smart manufacturing happen. So is the government planning some programs for channelizing the startups for different industries to help in smart manufacturing?
See, startup is a domain of DPIIT, so it's not my domain strictly, but government, as you know, is encouraging the startups in a big way. But let's face the truth. It is an internal industrial issue. Startup for sector A or startup B or sector B is that startup finding the opportunity. Government is a facilitator. Government cannot be doer. So that's what has happened from the 1970s onwards in Indian our mindset. I belong to that generation where we expect government to be doing everything. Now we know the people's energies are better put to optimal use when it's a private sector-led development, isn't it? So that people's energies are optimally channelized. So startup is one such thing. Startup for sector A or B, it is a guy who is doing the startup. He should be able to foresee that thing, and then he should be able to walk the talk. Why most of these startups don't succeed? Because they perceive something, but they are unable to lead it to the last point. Or the investors do not find it being strong enough on whom to bet, which would lead them make money. So it's not a government domain. So startups can be anywhere and everywhere, you know it. So there were some earlier startups, you say the scenario was easier. But then it's a continuous path. It's happening in all sectors. We couldn't see. Now, one point I like to say here, in India still the focus of most of the startups, I may be wrong, I'm just giving my information, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. Most of the startups are still focused on B2C. They are not on B2B. And that's the smart manufacturing. B2B startups must come up in India in a big way. That will help the smart manufacturing in a real sense. That's how I look at it, as across sectors.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much for laying out the government's vision when it comes to smart manufacturing, Mr. Goel, telling us about the importance of the PLI scheme and what the industry now needs to do after these interventions from the government. Thank you once again for joining us here on this discussion.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for those insights. Our guest of honor, respected Shri Arun Goel ji, Secretary, Ministry of Heavy Industries, Government of India, joined by Mr. Luthra. Thank you so much once again.
Forbes India, CNBC-TV18 present India Inc. on the Move. Smart manufacturing, powered by Rockwell Automation.